Hi, welcome to my channel Mostly Knitting. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. And if you're new here, I'm Tash, and this is a weekly podcast where I talk mostly about the knitting that I've been doing and perhaps any other craft if I've done any. Right, so I'm recording from Sydney, Australia, and it's Thursday the 6th of July, 2023. So this week I have one finished object, and I also have the Felix pullover that I showed last week, but I've blocked it now, so I will try that on. So my first finished object is the Skimmer Socks. I have two. So these are little no-show socks by the patterns by Shelia Toy Stromberg, and I knitted them in Circus Tonic Handmade Fireworks Sparkle Sock. That's a mouthful, in the colorway Turquoise Parrot, and this was some leftovers that I had from a Sorrel sweater that I made. So these two socks, I knit them on 2.25mm needles for the body of the sock, and then the ribbing was on 2mm needles. And for the first sock, I bound off with a 2.25mm needle because I'm just used to going up a size, even though the pattern said use the same, well, it didn't specifically say, but in the pattern she said I use this, I actually knit off quite tightly, bind off quite tightly. So I wasn't really paying attention to that. And then I bound off, and because of the nature of the bind off, like it's not on your calf, it's actually around your foot, you actually want it to be a little bit tight. So when I did my second one, I bound off with the 2mm needle, and I bound off a bit more tightly than usual, and it's actually perfect. So they weigh 17 grams each, so 34 grams. So it's really great for leftovers. You might even have enough leftovers, depending on the size of your foot, from a regular 100-gram ball pair of socks to make a pair of these as well, either for yourself or for a gift. So I don't normally try on socks, but I'm going to give this a go. I'll try these on and see. I suppose I could just put in a photo, but that's what they look like. Obviously, it looks like the bottom of a sock, and it's got like some short rows in the back to make this come back up a little bit. And yeah, that's what they look like, and they're really cute, and I like them. I have not worn them I wanted to show them on the podcast yet. I haven't worn them in shoes yet, so I'll give that a go and I'll report back as to whether they slip down, because they do have this little, some short rows at the back to make that a little bit higher. But yeah, I don't know. I find it really annoying, those sorts of socks, that when they slip down and they end up underneath your foot, but I do like that look of a no-show sock in shoes, so I will wear them and report back as to how well they stay up. So I'll talk about my faux from the vault now, because that will lead into my my WIPs. So this is a pattern called Green Gable, and it's by Rachel Bishop. And when I went to link the pattern, I noticed that it says it's not available anymore, and it has a link for where you can purchase it on her Etsy store, but then when you go to her Etsy store, you can't buy it there either. So unfortunately, this pattern isn't available. I made it 12 years ago, and I was even looking for it in my files on my computer, and I couldn't find it there either. So I must have printed it out and didn't actually save the file. So I might actually have a paper copy of it somewhere, because I was thinking, if I wanted to make it again, that always frustrates me a little bit. I'm like, why don't I just, so from now on, I'm quite diligent about making sure I save the files, because sometimes, you have a favorite pattern and then it's just not available anymore. Like the socks that I make, the fingering weight socks with a gusset heel, that's just not available anymore. So I'm really glad that and that's my go-to sock pattern. So I'm glad I downloaded that. Anyway, back to this pattern. I used a yarn called Online Linie Clip in the colorway black. So this is 12 years old. I made it obviously ages ago. I bought this yarn from my local yarn store in Brisbane at the time, Threads and More, and I don't think that yarn store exists anymore. So it's a top-down raglan. I pretty much followed the pattern. It's actually got it's quite those sleeves. The raglan, the arm size, not very long, but it's a top and it was meant to be fitted. I actually added waist shaping, quite a lot of, back when I was knitting everything very fitted, I added, I think, 6 sections of waist shaping just on the side, not princess seams, just on the side. The gauge, the interesting thing about this, the gauge for the pattern and this yarn, I was getting in my swatch 20 stitches over 4 inches on a 4mm needle, but I've had this for a long time. It's had a few washes. I haven't worn it a lot. It's held up actually really well. you know, it's not wool, it's 100% cotton, so it's not pilling, but it's not roughed up or anything. Like, it's actually looking quite nice still. But I noticed that obviously it's been washed a few times, and the gauge, I went to measure the gauge again and it's changed. So it was 20 stitches when I swatched and when I made it, but after wearing it a few times and washing it a few times, and I always wash, like hand wash and lay out to dry, but the gauge is now 18 stitches. So obviously either through wearing it's stretched out, and it's cotton, so, and I think that does happen. So anyway, so this is my green Gable top, but I obviously made it in black, my black Gable. And the back, so that lace detail is only on the front, and I think you can wear it either way. You can wear it like with the lace at the back if you want, but I always wear it at the front, and it doesn't go down too low, so I think it's, you know, it's quite modest. Yeah, so that's my black Gable, which is a pattern green Gable, unfortunately not available. Right, so that will move me from my faux from the vault to the my new WIP. I do have a few works in progress, but I did cast on a new one, and that's the Audrey top by PetiteKnit, and I'm using the same yarn as I used for this because I had 2 and a bit balls left. I have 237 grams left, and I actually only started this 2 days ago because, the pattern for this, the recommended gauge, the Audrey top, is 20 stitches. And I thought, oh, that's great. That's what I got for this one. And then I measured it and went, oh, it's 18. So I went down a needle size to a 3.75 mil needle. And as I'm knitting it, and even after I blocked it, I'm getting 21 stitches. But I'm pretty confident that that will stretch out over time to at least 20. So I think it'll be fine. I'm knitting the smallest size. Now I'm a bit nervous about this one because when you look at the pattern pictures, you know, it's quite this part is quite low. I'm going to trying this on for you. I'll show you. This is the front and this is the back. So the back is the same as the front, except you've got a little bit of knitting straight. And I've made quite a few changes to this. So I'll try and sort of run through it pretty quickly. I'm using a 3.75 mil needle. The pattern has you start right from the bottom, knit all the way up, and then split off and do the front and then the back. She also offers an option where instead of doing that, you start just before the splitting off. So you start here and knit up. And the way she instructs it, and she has a video on it as well, instead of doing, I'll tell you what I did, but what she recommends you do is you cast on all of the body stitches with Judy's Magic Cast On, which is like a seamless cast on that you normally start for a toe, like that's done with Judy's Magic Cast On. So you cast on actually 360 stitches. You cast on 180 stitches on each needle, and on one needle you would start knitting up, and the other needle would be left resting, and then you'll start knitting down. And at the time I thought that's a great idea. But it looked so awkward, and when I watched the video, I just thought, why isn't she just casting on for the front with a provisional cast on, and the back with a provisional cast on, knit up, and then undo the provisional cast on, join for knitting in the round, and knit down. And she didn't mention anything in the pattern as to why, so I thought, well, I'm going to give that a go. I'm using leftover yarn, it's going very quickly, I'll try it. So that's what I did. I cast on for the front on a provisional cast on, knit up, and then what the pattern has you do for the front is I'm not giving all of the secret sauce away in the patterns because, and I'm doing it differently, but the pattern has you keep 4 stitches here for an I-cord strap, and then bind all of these off, and then another 4 stitches for the I-cord strap, and that's the front. And then the pattern says for the back, you actually bind off all of the stitches. You don't keep these 4 stitches. That's what the pattern instructs you to do, just bind them all off. And then she tells you to Kitchener stitch this strap once you've made it to the back. But Kitchener stitch is used with live stitches, not bound off stitches. So you can seam it, but it's not Kitchener stitch. So anyway, I decided to do the same. I kept these 4 on the back, just like the front, and I've done the I-cord strap which I haven't finished because I'm still deciding just how long I want it to be, and I won't decide that for sure until I've knit the whole thing and all of the weight is hanging off it. And then I'll just see like how long, like I thought that was really short, but I actually think that's going to be even a bit too long. So, and what I'll do is I will maybe do, I might do a 3 needle bind off, and that will be right at the back, so you won't really see it, but at least with a 3 needle bind off, there'll be a bit more stability than grafting, because true grafting, there's no seam, and then that will just have a lot of stretch. Whereas if I do a 3 needle bind off, at least it's a bind off, which is a little bit more secure, and then hopefully there won't be quite as much stretch on the back at least. Anyway, we'll see how we go. I am going to give it a go trying this on because it's still like, it's on the needles. I've got, how far am I? I'm about that far down in the body. What's that, about inch and a half, maybe, inch and a half, 2 inches. So yeah, so, and because I'm a little bit short of yarn, I thought that would be a good way to do it anyway. So I'll just take this off. I've got a tank on underneath. Now it might be a bit hard to see because this tank is black and obviously this is black, but I'm gonna give it a go. It's gonna be a little bit awkward. So, but I think I can do it. Right, so here's the front and here's the strap, and it's a little, I can do it. I've tried it on in the bedroom. I was giving it a go. So let's see. So we'll put this, sorry, get it around. This probably would have been more obvious if I had a white top on, but anyway. So that's where that's sitting, but can you see how low that is? That's actually really low. So I couldn't even wear, I don't reckon, and she's not wearing a bra for sure. Definitely not wearing a bra in the pattern pictures. I don't think you can wear a bra. I'm fully an A cup, like even the little bit that you might see here is because I'm wearing a push-up bra. And because it's black and I'm knitting it reasonably densely with the 3.75mm needle, I think it will be all right for me to wear without a bra. Yeah, or it could be something that I just chuck on at the beach over swimmers or something. Anyway, so that's where I'm at the moment with it. And so I think perhaps what she was concerned about, why she didn't want to do it this way, was perhaps this might not be the tidiest, where you actually, like, because there's no finishing, but I can always neaten that up with a little bit of crochet or whatever. Anyway, I think that will work. It'll be fine, but it's the style of the top. It's meant to be, you know, it's meant to be worn without a bra, but as long as it covers my front. And I should have this finished, certainly finished by the next recording anyway, and I'll show you, because I did this thing where, like, I do sometimes where I want to work out how much knitting I have left to do. So each row takes me, like each row coming down the body takes me 4.5 minutes, and I think the total body is like maybe 9 inches with 7 rows per inch. So it's 63 rows, you know, like I do the math. So I've got about, from what I've got left, I've got a bit less than, it's quite awkward, 4 hours left of knitting on the body, which isn't a huge amount, but I am a bit careful because it's cotton. I don't knit that all in one, like I might do half an hour and then I put it aside because it's just a bit hard on my hands. Anyway, so that was that was a lot of talking on that pattern, but I have made quite a few changes, and in the construction, in, you know, needle size and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'll see how I go with that. I should, yeah, by the time I record next, I reckon that will be finished, and I'll try it on, and I'll try it on the way I'll wear it, like without a bra, and, you know, and talk a little bit about the, how it went with the changes that I made. Right, so that is the Audrey top by PetiteKnit, which is the only new cast on. Now we get to some sort of slightly, you know, less happy WIPs. I'm going to talk about my Sorrel. So the Sorrel is, I'll show you, it's by everything that I'm showing, not everything, but a lot. Oh, far out. Has that many things attached, and it's just starting to really get to me a little bit, to be honest. And so many balls, and So the Sorrel, I'm love all of this here. I'm gonna try it on. Obviously I wouldn't wear it over a black tank, but I'll just try it on. Okay, and you'll see what I have done with this if you watched last week. Last week the whole body was done, and now the body has been undone. It had no sleeves, it has a sleeve now. So I ended up ripping out the colour that I didn't like very much, which was the, whatever it was, the hedgehog fibres. That was a bit too murky brown. And I chose this Barbara Deserves Better in Tosh Merino Light. So, sorry, this is knit. The Sorrel pattern is by Wool and Pine. This is my third version of it. I'm knitting it with Rowan Kidsilk Haze in the colourway Nectar, and I've got various fingering weight yarns that I'm holding with it. The light colour here was from my So Faded Pullover leftovers, and then I faded it in with some yarn from leftover from Dotted Rays and from a top, another top that I made out of Toshmo Light. And then I started fading in the Hedgehog Fibres yarn, which is, oopsie, sorry, this one here. And it just didn't look good. It had all this brown in it. It wasn't very nice. So I ripped that out. Zach helped me rip it out. And I sort of went up to here and thought that'll be enough. And now I'm reconsidering, because I've knit about this much. And I sort of faded it in, but like it was all right with the sleeves, but here it feels really jarring, and I didn't really fade it in as well as the pattern suggested I should. So the pattern has you do 2 rows of the old colour, 1 of the new, 2 of the old, 1 of the new, and then shifting to 1, 1, 1, 1, and then 1 of the old, 2 of the new, 1 of the old, 2 of the new, that kind of thing, and then eventually just the new. And I just went, I don't have a lot of the old, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, new. So that didn't work very well, because it's really obvious again. So I've only done about 10 rows, but I am going to take it off, rip those 10 rows out, and also rip a bit further back, because there's still like some of this that I just don't love. And so I'm probably going to rip it back up to here. So I've got to rip out, this is the new I've got to rip out. This is the extra that I just thought would be fine, but I'm actually not that happy with it. I'm going to rip that out as well. And then I'm going to do the fade properly and for a good long way. The fading is a bit frustrating. It's not a lot of fun, because you're actually knitting this, aside from this bit here, you knit right side out. But once you get to this fully stockinette side, you're actually knitting it inside out. And as a result, because when you're changing yarns, you normally change them on the wrong side, but like this side, but then that side is the presentation side, so you kind of have to pull them to the inside. It's quite a bit of fiddling. And so the alternating hasn't been fun. So I kind of tried to shortcut it, and it didn't work. So I'm gonna rip back, but yeah, not yet. That was only yesterday, I think. Yesterday, the day before, yeah, yesterday. And I just got a bit sad and went, oh, I just can't deal with this right now. And I don't want my knitting to be sad, so yes. That's where that's at. Yes, so we'll see how we go. Anything else I wanted to say about that? I think that's probably just a few little things. I'm knitting it with slightly things I've mentioned before, but if you're new here, the pattern, the neck goes up a lot higher. All I did to change that was I'm using needle sizes 1 size up for both the ribbing and the body. And I also didn't knit this nearly as long. Like I think I knit it maybe only 3/4 of an inch instead of 1.5 inches. And then that has it sit a lot nicer, like lower for me, what I wanted around my neck. Right, so that's where the sorrel's at the moment. I will probably pull that back this afternoon, or maybe tomorrow. Maybe I'm not quite ready for it, maybe tomorrow. Anyway, I am curious to hear, like, I think you'll probably say the same thing, but I think that's just too much of a jump. And given that I've bothered to rip back all of the body, why I just don't want to keep knitting being unhappy with it. And I am really happy with how the sleeves have come out. I was a little bit lazy with the sleeve transition, but I think it worked out well enough on the sleeve, but I'm not happy with it on the body. So yeah, so I'm going to do that. So that's Sorrel. What are my other WIPs? Let me just put all that aside. So I've got, as always, a Musselburgh by Ysolda Teague on the needles. So that is in Skein Sisters Fabulous Sock in the colourway As You Wish. It's got a lot more green in it than I was expecting, but I actually think it's really pretty. It's got a lot of these chartreuse and green flecks in it, and I'm really liking it. I might actually I might put a stitch marker in where I'm at, because you really can't tell how much progress, and I can't tell how much progress I've made in a week, so that would be kind of nice. Not that I'm in any rush with this. I've got plenty, I know I have plenty of yarn. I'm on a 3.25mm needle and 136 stitches, and I'll probably cast on another one just so that I've got enough, like for travel knitting and stuff. I've always got one of these on the needles. Right, so that's my current Musselburgh. Another project that I'm doing is another black project, is these mitts for Myak. Now it's not much longer than I showed last week, but what happened was I started to do, sorry, I've got mohair or something and it's really just kind of up my nose a bit, and it's probably annoying watching me scritch myself. So I started the thumb gusset, and then I think because I'm holding it, this is in Myak baby lace or lace yak or something or another, and Rowan Kidsilk Haze in the colourway Wicked, those two held together. I think when I was somewhere on here, I noticed that I'd only wrapped the yarn around with one strand, so I had one sort of stitch, and so I tried to drop down and it was dark. I don't even know why I bothered. Anyway, I've ended up creating a little hole, and so I'm going to have to rip back now. And I don't feel comfortable, just because it's dark and I'm having trouble seeing it. I'm going to do that one stitch at a time, and I probably only have to rip back maybe 3 rows, so it's not a lot, but I don't want to just pull it off. It'll take me longer to pull it off the needles and then try to put it back on with 2 strands than to just take off 3 rows, 1 row at a time, and I'll start back from wherever I ended up, you know, creating that hole. The other thing that I'm finding difficult with this is that I can't count my rows very easily, and because it's something that I'm doing one at a time, obviously this is mitts and like fingerless mitts, so I need a second one, and the second one needs to be the same as the first one, and I'm having trouble working out. So I'm going to use a row counter. I don't normally use a row counter because I just count rows, right? Oh, how many rows have I done, and I'll just count it. But it's really hard. It's actually not too bad when I hold it up like that, but it is really hard to count those rows. So I've probably got about 10 of these little row counters. Because I'm knitting in the, like, not knitting flat, I can't put that on. These are usually put on like fixed needles. So I might just sort of keep that in the project bag with it, and then just use that and I use it like whenever I start a row, I turn it and go, right, so I know that's the row I'm on, and that will keep me hopefully on track. Because it's even hard to see, did I make if I just made an increase, if I not made an increase? So that's going to keep me on track with that, but I do have to go back a little bit. This is a bit of a theme, going backwards at the moment, unfortunately, which just kind of bums me out a bit, but anyway. All right, 3 rows, I can live with that. That is, so that's still in progress. Another work in progress is my Ranunculus. So when everything else was not working, like my Sorrel and the mitts, and I've been knitting on the Audrey top, but the cotton was bothering me, I just went, oh, like Ranunculus. I know what I'm doing with that, and it's 1 strand of yarn, and I'm not alternating skeins, so I could just knit. So I did actually make a little bit of progress on this. This is Ranunculus by Midori Hiroshi. This is my 3rd version. I'm knitting this in Berroco Remix in the colourway Eggplant. and with just one skein, and it's on 6mm needles. So last week I had not done the elongated stitches. Now I've done the elongated stitches, 2 sets of those, and the slip stitches, and I think I'm up to the row where I actually start the little lace part. Now this isn't like the version that I really liked in this yarn. I'll put a picture up here that sort of inspired me to use this yarn, is in a really light color, and you can really see all of these, you know, all of the patterning. In this color, you really can't. So the pattern's kind of lost. So it's not the best yarn to showcase the pattern, but it's also not horrible either. It's just like, it's not your best choice. If I was a knitting designer, I wouldn't use this one as the one for the project page, but it doesn't mean it's horrible. You just don't see it as well. So, and I still think it will make a nice top, and I will finish it. And I'm happy to have made a bit of progress on this. Yes, so that's that one, and it is actually moving. And I was actually really happy when all the other things weren't going well. I was happy to have a sweater that I could just go to and go, I feel like knitting on a sweater, but this is one that's actually working. So that's my Ranunculus. Now the Cumulus. So I tried, this is another one that I'm not happy with. Okay, I feel like such a complainer, but you know, I want to get this right. So Cumulus seemed to have been fixed with the way that I picked up the stitches, but when I was trying it on, I was kind of like, there's just something not right here. And I don't know if you can see, I've actually fully taken it off the needles because I was going to rip it up, rip back to just like, you know, cast on less, because it's still a bit oversized, cast on fewer stitches under the arms, maybe take it back and rip back like a raglan increase or 2 if that was workable. But I noticed, can you see all that sort of pulling in and puckering around the front? So what's actually happening is, because I didn't pick up as many stitches around the neckline as the pattern suggested, you're meant to pick up 1 for every row. And I think I picked up 3 and skipped 1, so maybe 4 and skipped 1. I didn't skip a lot, but I definitely didn't pick up one for 1. So that's created sort of some little gaps here, which aren't horrible, but you can tell where I've skipped. And also, probably more problematic for me, I don't know if you can tell, but the yarn is like the row, instead of sitting flat, is like going up like that. I'll show you. Can you see how it's kind of swooping up? Because it's meant to be like picked up like that, and every row is row, but because I haven't picked up as many as I'm supposed to have, it's pulled up a little. And what that's doing is it's sort of puckering it a bit at the front. And I don't like that either. So I'm definitely at a minimum. So I've just taken it off the needles altogether because I know I'm going to rip back at least a little bit. And I'm going to undo the I-cord, undo the neckline pickup, and have another go at it, and then sort of sit, and then have it sitting flat. And how do I like it? This pattern is getting to a point where I'm actually almost ready to cut my losses and just go, you know what, I'm just ripping the whole thing out. So this is kind of my last ditch attempt to do the neckline properly and take a look at how it looks and say, would it ripping back to, you know, and getting rid of a couple of underarm stitches, or sort of a couple of underarm increases, and reducing the stitch count, will that help? Will I, after I've done the neckline properly, do I like where it sits? Is it possible for me to make this workable? And if not, I'm just taking the whole thing apart. So that's where Cumulus is at. That's another one that kind of needs my attention. I need to, because obviously I have to rip back that I-cord, pick up all the stitches again properly, and redo the bind off. So that's going to take a little while. Right, so I think that is it for my WIPs. Right, so I'm going to do my plans and purchases, but I thought I might just quickly show you the Felix pullover after it's been blocked. So this is the Felix pullover by Amy Christoffers, and I used Sundara Aran Silky Merino in the colorway Somewhere Out There, and Knit Picks Aloft in the colourway Labyrinth. And I did a tubular cast on a 3.75mm needle, switched to a 5mm needle for the ribbing, then a 6mm needle for the body. I did a tubular bind off for the sleeves and the body, and I also added some extra short rows to drop the hem a little bit, so it was a little bit longer at the back than at the front actually, and that's actually become quite pronounced actually. I hadn't intended for it to be quite so pronounced, but it's worked out that way and I think it's okay. Yeah, so it's got a really nice lace detail on the sleeves. I did find that the sleeves didn't have quite enough stitches, so I stole a couple of stitches from the body to the sleeves, to there and to there. And I think, yes, I think it's worked out okay. The arm size probably a little bit long, but it works out okay because it's sort of a bit oversized and loose. And yeah, I'm happy with that, with how that's done. And if I can get Mia, who it's for, so it's for my daughter Mia, and I'll try and get, if I can get a photo of her in it, I'll pop that up there. Right, so yes, so now plans and purchases. So obviously I have quite a few things that I have to fix, but I'll get to them, and I'm on school holidays, so I've got about another 2.5 weeks left. So I will try and get those done, you know, before I go back to school. But I do have some new plans. Obviously, I just started the Audrey top, and so that was a recent purchase. I also bought the mini Myak tank. I think I mentioned this last week, but I actually did purchase that, and I'm just choosing yarn now for it. So I swatched, and this is Madeline Tosh MCN fingering in the colourway Bloomsbury. You can see there just the dye broke a little bit in that spot. So if this is for a swatch, so it doesn't matter, but if that was in my project, I would have to cut that out. Like, I'll, you know, have to cut that piece of yarn out, because yeah, I wouldn't want that fleck of pink in the middle of my sweater. Anyway, it's fine for the swatch. So that swatch, I think the pattern suggests 24 stitches over 4 inches, and I'm getting 25, so that's not too bad. I might just adjust a little bit. This is another one, this is Volumized Twin in the colourway and I'm also getting 25 stitches for that one. My row gauge is really different. The row gauge is 28 in the pattern, and I'm getting 36 here and 34 here. So I could add a little bit of extra length in the body, because it's actually done by rows rather, this part here is done by rows rather than length. But I've noticed some people did that and then ended up with really gaping armholes. So I'll just see how I go. The other one that I'm considering is this. This is actually a sport weight, but it's Western Sky Knits, I think, and I used it for a dress that I made. And so because I've made like a whole dress in it, I've got a really good idea of gauge, so I don't really need this. Like, the whole dress was actually knit on a larger needle. It was knit on a 3.75mm needle, but I was getting exactly 24 stitches, so I'd probably just use the larger needle because the pattern says a 3.5mm. These were both done on 3.5mm, and I like the drape and the fabric, so I wouldn't go, even though I'm not hitting gauge, I'm not going to go up a needle size because I might hit gauge, but then it'll be a bit open and airy. So I think what I would do is either knit slightly the size up or just modify it in a small way, because the pattern's quite interesting actually. It's knit with heaps of negative ease. So the extra small is to fit a bust of 28 inches. The small is to fit a bust of 32 inches, which is my size. And then the medium is to knit a bust of to fit a bust of 36 inches. But the finished measurements are all about 5 inches smaller than, so it's a lot of negative ease. The finished measurements will be much smaller. So for my 32-inch size, the finished size is meant to be 27.5 inches. But when I read through the pattern, which I think is really important if you're trying to figure out what size to make, between the small and the medium, the only difference is 4 extra stitches in the back and 4 in the front, which is not a lot. But then the big change, everything else is the same. Everything else in the pattern is the same for the small and the medium, except the number of stitches that you cast on under the arms. So for the small, you cast on 7, and for the medium, you cast on 15. 15 on each side. So that's 8 more here, 8 more here. That's where you get the bulk of your size increase. So as a result, that's a lot to play with. Like if I just want to make it a little bit smaller, I just won't cast on as many under the arms. So I think what I'm going to do is knit because my gauge, if I use one of these yarns, my gauge is a little bit tighter, I'll definitely cast on for the medium. So I've got the 4 extra stitches on the front and back. And then I'll just cast on maybe a few less. I won't cast on 15 under the arms. I'll cast on something between 7 and 15, depending on how it's sitting and how it's looking when I've actually sort of blocked it on the needles, which I will do. Yeah, so I'm just deciding on each of these 3. I'm interested if anyone thinks, like, I think they're all quite pretty. That's sort of a delicate blue. That's quite a, full-on turquoisey, and then that's a full-on pink. But I do think that's really pretty. And I plan to wear this with like a long white skirt that I have, and making it quite a bit longer than the actual pattern, because the pattern has it really, really cropped. I would definitely have it covering my waist. The skirt that I have is a really high-waisted skirt, so it doesn't need to be hugely longer, but just a little bit longer so that there's not a gap between my skirt and the shirt. I'd like it to cover, or at least hit, or if I move, not have, be able to see my torso. Right, so that is my plans for that. Now I'll just talk about the knit along. So I'm running a knit along, which is pretty much a free for all, but the general guidelines were a Petite Knits pattern or a My Favorite Things pattern, or any other pattern that I've mentioned or like worn, or in my faux from the vault, or what I'm making or what I've made, or even just talked about as something that I'm interested in making, like the mini mock tank, or yeah. So and that ends on the 1st of September. It'd be really great if you can use this hashtag, mostly knitting YouTube Cal, and if you post anything on Instagram, and yeah, then I get to see what you're making as well. But honestly, if it doesn't fit exactly into that category, it doesn't matter. Just please share, and then I can see what you guys are making as well. Right, and I haven't had a chance to check Instagram. So, and I went to just try and look on and obviously I'm recording on my phone, so I can't check at the moment. And I mean, I could and then pull it off the tripod and everything, but I'm not going to do that. And then I tried to log in on my computer and I got the password wrong. I'm like, okay, that's just whatever. I'll mention next week. Yes, or next recording. And I will put, if I see any though, I'll put some photos up here, and I'll put in the tag below, or just mention below whose projects they are and what they are. So thank you for posting. And yes, I am definitely checking, and I do like, and it also means I get to follow you and see what you're making. The hidden whips basket. Now that segment I've decided to not do today. That whole segment for me is to go through and look at something from that basket, and something that wasn't working and I put aside. Now I have so much of my current whips that have problems that I just can't invite another problem right now. So I'm just not going to do that segment this week. And other craft. So the other thing that I'm going to do is, I was going to do some sewing this week and I haven't yet, but and I was going to do the field bag yesterday, or the day before yesterday, whatever, and realized I don't actually have the pattern. So I went, I hadn't been to the copy shop and had it printed out. So I went yesterday and got it printed out, and I plan to do some sewing tomorrow. And I'd like to make the field bag and get it made before I go away next week, because that'd be nice to take with me. Right, so that's it for all of the sort of crafty business. I haven't done any crochet or anything else this week, so I'm about to do the personal stuff, like my plans, what happened last week, and my plans coming up for this week. So if you're leaving now, thanks so much for watching, and if you haven't already liked and subscribed, that would be really nice. Right, so this last week, I finished school on Friday. I'm on school holidays now. I'm a high school maths teacher, and And then I think I went for a really lovely walk on Saturday. It was beautiful weather with my friend Amy down at Cronulla by the beach, and I forgot to take any photos as usual. But it was really nice. We live about a half an hour drive from the beach, which is really nice. What else? I went to the mall with my son and bought him stuff for school, and yeah, nothing very super exciting. I went and visited my cousin yesterday. Actually, I might just put a little photo of her. So my dad he passed away recently. He's Croatian, and so I have a whole lot of Croatian relatives who came out at various times after the war, and I went and visited my cousin Yelica. I think she's about 10 years older than me, and I put a picture of her with me when I went with my dad and my brother to visit when I was, I think, about 4, and there's me and her back then. Anyway, she lives here now. All of the family came over after the war, and yeah, so she's really lovely, and it was really good to, I was at a wedding recently and saw her again then, and thought I'd like to, at least in the school holidays, see her more regularly. She's really lovely. So I went and visited her yesterday, and that's what happens, I think, as a teacher. There are some people who I only get to see in the school holidays because either they live a long way away or just life in general is pretty busy. So yeah, it's good to be able to catch up properly in the holidays. And then I went to a thrift shop afterwards and bought some new jeans, well, new reused, like not recycled, I guess. What are they? Thrifted jeans, and they were $8, $8 Aussie each. So good, which is like $5 US. Really nice ones, like some Guess jeans, some Tommy Hilfiger ones, Zara ones. Yeah, I bought a few pairs because Alex is my size. So I bought a few and thought, oh well, she'll probably like some too. And yeah, so that was really nice to go shopping and buy something that was really, because I tried on, when I went to the mall with Zach, I tried on a pair of jeans and they were $190, and Zach was like, no way, Mum, that's crazy. So I was like, yeah, that's silly. So yeah, $8, much better than 100. Anyway, and it was so cheap, I bought a few. So that's pretty much, I haven't really done that much. So it's Thursday now. I'm going to go, I think, with Zach. Oh, tonight, actually, I'm going out for dinner tonight. My husband works in finance, and he just had this really big deal that closed, and the clients want to take him and me out to dinner to this fancy Japanese restaurant, like for an 11-course meal. So I'm doing that tonight, so that should be nice. Like really something I would just never normally do or get to do. So yeah, so that's exciting. So that's tonight. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to go whale watching with Zach. So I'm just going to put a little bit of footage. Actually, I'll put it at the end. This friend of mine, we work together. He has a drone, and the drone has, like, I guess a camera or something on it. And I'll put at the end this amazing footage, because it's obviously whale season here at the moment, these humpback whales. So I'm going to go tomorrow with Zach to, hopefully we'll be able to see some whales. Yeah, I mean, I'd never get to see them like this footage that I'll put in the end because I don't have a drone, but apparently you can see it pretty well even from shore. So I think what else is happening? Oh, I'm teaching knitting on Saturday. Got 2 classes. Knit my first beanie again, which is really nice, and then finishing techniques. So picking up stitches and all that kind of, and you know, seaming, that kind of thing. So that's Saturday. And I did ask them to put aside that extra skein of Scout. So I bought 3 skeins of Tosh Merino Light in the colorway Scout, and they had one more there, and it was still there this morning. So I called them up and said, can you put it aside? So I will pick that up on Saturday. And then I think I'll be spending a bit of time just working out my packing list, because on Tuesday I'm going to, with my mum and my aunt, we're going to Melbourne for a couple of days, and then picking up Beck from Melbourne, and we're going to go to Sunspun Yarns, and then drive out to Bendigo to the wool show, and then spend 3 nights in Bendigo. So that's a lot coming up. And then I get back on Sunday night, and then on Monday morning I'm going on a 4-night cruise to Moreton Island in Queensland. So I've got lots to think about in terms of my packing list for what to take, because Bendigo will be freezing and Melbourne freezing cold. The cruise probably won't be all that warm either, because like it's still winter here. But the most important thing is not just what I'm going to pack for clothes. That's, you know, whatever. it's what knitting I'm going to pack. So I don't know what I'm definitely going to do some recording while I'm down in Melbourne, in Bendigo. I'll, you know, take some footage. But as to when I do my next upload, that I'm not sure. It'll just depend on how much, it may not be for a couple of weeks. So, but I've been pretty good about doing this every week. So if I'm not recording next week, I'm sorry, but I might even have to split it up because it will be a bit long. Anyway, I think that's, is that it for me? Probably. Oh, the only other thing that I'm going to do, or I plan to do, and I'm hoping to do it these holidays, but I'm not sure if I'll get to, last little thing is Adobe Premiere Pro. So I found out that, which is editing software, I found out that actually as a teacher at my school, I have access to that. And because they teach it to the Year 9 students, they have all these videos on how to use it. So the media teacher, I asked him to send it to me. So I've got those videos to watch, and because I'm just editing this on my phone on InShot, and like actually editing the whole thing on my phone, not even, can you tell? You probably can tell. It's not very well edited. And there's a few things that I'd like to be able to do. Like I'd like to be able to have footage of me trying something on, so you see what I'm trying on, but I'm still talking in the background. So it's my audio now, but you're seeing whatever I'm talking about. Anyway, I don't think that's that hard. I just don't know how to do it. Like most things, until you've figured out how to do it, it all sounds harder than it is. But whenever you're doing something one way and then you have to learn a different way, you're going to be slower. Like I remember when I first used to knit, I would actually drop the needle, wrap the yarn around, and I got quite quick at that. And then my friend taught me lever knitting, where you just sort of, and I was reluctant to try it because I was slower to start with, and then got quicker eventually. But you have to be prepared to be slower before you are quicker. Like learning continental knitting, that kind of thing. I taught myself, you know, through videos and whatever, how to knit with yarn in my left hand, so that then when I do fair isle, I can do one colour in one hand and one colour in the other. And I had to be prepared. I knit a whole beanie using the yarn in my left hand, just like one colour, just to build up that muscle memory. And it was painful. It was not painful hard, like hurting, but painful annoying to be so slow. But I was like, there's a point to this. It's so that I'm quicker and, you know, better later. Anyway, all of that. So that's another thing that I'm going to do, is to learn how to use Adobe Premiere Pro, and hopefully the editing on this can be a little smoother, and I can cut out background noise and you know, make it a little bit more, I don't know, professional is not the right word. This isn't a business, but yeah, just a little bit nicer to watch. So yes, anyway, that's it for my week, and I'll see you, if not in another week, hopefully in a couple of weeks. And I hope everyone's keeping well, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, bye.